Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Kacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vasyacharya Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Krishna
Reading from the Transcendental Diary on His Grace, Hari Sori Prabhu. I've never read this book, so just looking at the first paragraph, so this is wonderful stuff. It's okay. This is chapter 10, Calcutta, New Delhi, Modi Nagar, and Aligarh, March 22nd, 1976. At 5:30 a.m., Srila Prabhupada descended the stairs amid a loud kirtan and excited shouts from the devotees. He stepped into the back seat of the car and we sped off for Calcutta, accompanied by an escort of 6 vans and one of Hamsuddha Swami's buses. So I wasn't here for the previous, but Hamsuddha Swami, who was the GBC in Germany, and then in the UK, and then he headed up a preaching book distribution party in India. And he drove 6 Mercedes-Benz vans overland from Germany to India to use as part of his program there, and a bus. So this whole convoy is following Srila Prabhupada. Must have been quite impressive. I heard that when Srila Prabhupada went to the castle of Schloss Rettersdorf in Germany, they had all their small Mercedes vans lined up. And the place the castle was on was owned by people who owned these stallions, what they call it, the ones with the big legs, Bavarian stallions. And they had gotten the horses lined up, and the horses were trained, and they had the horses bow down as Prabhupada drove in the car to the castle. And Prabhupada was in the car with Hamsuddha, and he saw the devotees all nicely dressed, standing beside the vans. And I heard that Prabhupada said, "Pitidas to me." Prabhupada turned to Hamsuddha and said, "Nice army you got here." Nice army you got here. So, and this was all part of his program for preaching in India. Pusta Krishna Maharaj drove our car, which is quite an accomplishment for a Westerner to drive in India. I've driven all over the world, all over England, Ireland, America, It wasn't too long before I began to nod off to sleep. Despite Prabhupada's objecting several times, and by my own best effort, I just couldn't keep alert. Srila Prabhupada became so annoyed that he had Pushta Krishna stop the car and made me change places with Tamal Krishna so that I sat in front. After that embarrassment, I stayed awake for the rest of the journey. And again, you don't want to sit in front in India. There's always, you're about to hit another car that cuts in front of you, so that'll keep you awake. That'll keep you awake. An important point here is that being in Prabhupada's personal presence also meant you directly being considered, chastised by Srila Prabhupada himself. So you had to keep to a good standard. All along the route, as we passed through the small villages, young children came running out to see the convoy. They laughed, danced, and waved as we went past, attracted by the loud kirtan being broadcast from atop Gargamuni Swami's vans. So they had sound systems on top of the vans, and they were blasting out along the way. So they could be heard from a long way. The kids would get up, see what's going on, and then they would hear the chanting and appreciate it. We stopped off at the ashram of Srila Lalit Prasad, the brother of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and the last remaining son of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So Srila Bhakti Vinod had 10 children, and of course Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. And Srila Lalit Prasad was also a son of Srila Bhakti Vinod. He is very old. His ashram consists of a small temple and a few red brick dwellings, none of which are well maintained. Prabhupada talked for some time with him and some of his management committee. They discussed the plans he had for development of Srila Bhaktivinod's birth site. Nothing conclusive was arrived at with regard to their giving some land or even a lease on the property. So Srila Prabhupada was very concerned. One of the last things Srila Prabhupada did before, he set up the Bhaktivedanta Swami Charity Trust. And it was managed by Jagataka Swami and other devotees who were resident in India. And Prabhupada wanted them to rescue any of the places of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna's pastimes that were falling into such disrepair that they practically couldn't be recognized. So they had the permission to spend money to renovate these different sacred places so that they would still be used and visited by devotees for years to come. So they were discussing with Srila Lalit Prasad about the renovation of the birthplace of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and about some land and even a lease on property. But nothing was arrived at as an agreement. We all took prasadam before leaving. Srila Prabhupada with Lalit Prasad, and we disciples with the local devotees of the ashram, up on the open roof. So in India you find many of the houses. The roof is also paved, so they can have festivals. You see devotees oftentimes, they sleep on the roof in the hot weather and in the evenings, the cool breezes. So in India, that's a feature of many of the houses, that the roofs are another floor, practically speaking. Jagataka Maharaj, eager as ever to preach and advertise ISKCON's worldwide missionary efforts, told a group of our hosts about our preaching in the West. They were all eager to hear, and Maharaj tried to impress upon them the great need for Krishna consciousness in all the countries of the world. He told them of a law recently passed in Sweden, which makes it no longer illegal for members of the same family to have sex with each other. He said that they were becoming increasingly degraded, and only Lord Chaitanya's movement can save them. The simple Bengali Vaishnavas were all shocked to hear such things. They were very appreciative of Prabhupada's preaching and of his Western disciples. After an hour or so, they departed with nothing being positively decided. Sri Sri Radha Govinda Mandir, 3A Albert Road, Calcutta. Srila Prabhupada gave a short but very pointed talk upon his arrival at the packed Calcutta temple. So this would have been leading up to the Mayapur festival. So there would have been a lot of devotees around. He first congratulated the pujaris for looking after the deities so nicely. And they're really nicely looked at. They're so beautiful deities there. Just like we have here. Sri Sri Radha and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. Then he went on to explain that these same personalities, referring to them by their names in Mayapur, Sri Sri Radha Madhava, are the combined form of Lord Chaitanya. Having just come from the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada told his attentive and mainly non-Indian audience that it was Lord Chaitanya's desire that the inhabitants of Bharat Bhumi spread Krishna consciousness all over the globe. Although it is the duty of the Indians, he said, Bharat Bhumi can be understood in a broader sense as well. In one sense, Bharat means this planet. Formerly there was one flag, Bharat, and the capital was Hastinapur. Gradually the control of the Pandavas declined. Up to Maharaj Parikshit, the whole world was Bharatvarsha. Now it has become a tiny land, peninsula. So in that sense, anyone who's taken birth on this planet, it is the duty of him to spread Krishna consciousness. So by the grace of Krishna, you European boys and girls, you have taken very seriously, and Krishna will be very much pleased upon you. Srila Prabhupada expressed his regret that the Indian people are not taking the Krishna consciousness movement seriously. He noted that even our immediate neighbors show no interest. Although they live in the same building, their only interest is in making money and dealing He condemned the attempt of modern leaders to convince the villagers that their conditions will improve by industrialization, causing them to give up their Krishna-conscious culture. The only result will be misfortune. So this was, unfortunately, the situation at the time. We didn't have any Indian devotees. One or two, practically. And the people in India, again, were just pursuing modern technological and materialistic concerns. Whereas by Srila Prabhupada's efforts, by his building of the big temples in Vrindavan and Bombay and Mayapur, people's minds have been turned. And now we find there are lots of devotees, Indian devotees, and they're sharp. They're sharp. Indian, born in India devotees. Present company accepted. And they're intelligent. And they're utilizing their intelligence not for just making money and getting some big degree, but they're using their intelligence for preaching Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada would be amazingly pleased by their efforts. But he wanted that to be spread all over the world. He wanted everyone, every young person, every old person, every middle-aged person, from any culture and any racial position, everyone, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, they should become Krishna conscious. Of course, being from Bengal, Srila Prabhupada had watched the degradation of the culture over the decades, especially since independence. So it was bad enough that the Moguls were ruling. It was bad enough that the British were ruling. But the Indians ruling made a bigger mess than the Moguls and the British, especially since independence. He ascribes this to their pursuit of Western materialistic ideas, and he made a plea to the room full of young Westerners now before him to help reverse the trend. Anyway, quote, Calcutta is my birthplace, so you have kindly come here and are conducting this temple. I am very much obliged to you. I cannot remain here. I have to go here and there. Try to raise the standard of Krishna consciousness. Even there are so many inconveniences, I know. You are coming from a country where material conveniences are greater. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advised, Trinadapi Sanichena, Tarora Api Sarishnam, Amanina Anandina, Kirtanisa Sriya. So, important temple, but the facilities were somewhat limited. Quote, so some of you have come with your big buses and vans to preach in India. You take Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's blessings and try to enlighten these people, the Bharatavarsha, the inhabitants of Bharatvarsh. Naturally, they are already inclined, just like in the villages when we were passing, the boys and children, they were also dancing. That is natural. Some way or another, this India is in a very precarious condition. So you have come taking so much trouble, and take little trouble. There is no trouble. By the grace of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there will be no trouble. You will be happy. Trying to preach this Krishna consciousness movement in India at least for some time, and help them to rise to their standard of Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. Calcutta temple is packed with devotees, and there is no running water. This is a continual problem, now exacerbated by the crowd of visiting devotees. In the best of times, the water only comes on for a few hours each day. So that was a problem because we flew from Calcutta, and the flights were early in the morning generally. So we had to stay in Calcutta temple. There was a large veranda where you could lay out your sleeping bag, but there really practically was only one bathroom and no water. But there was a pukur across the road. So if you hazard yourself in the dark to trip over there and jump in, it wasn't exactly the best water, but it was water. We have to haul water to Prabhupada's bathroom and store it in a small tank. Most devotees are bathing in the lake across the road. For Srila Prabhupada called for the new temple president, Abhiram Das, a tall American, previously in charge of our Miami Center. He told him to immediately install a new holding tank. March 23rd, 1976. Prabhupada took his walk around the lake opposite the temple and inspected a large house on the corner of it that may be up for sale soon. Although it is run down, Prabhupada was interested in buying it because of the lakeside location. A price of 14 lakhs of rupees was mentioned. He asked Abhiram to make the necessary applications to gain responsibility for beautification of the lake and its gardens, and then gradually try to get permission to build a magnificent temple in the center of the lake. Since it is one of Calcutta's most prestigious locations, a gorgeous temple on the lake would attract tens of thousands of people, he said. Srila Prabhupada has ever-increasing plans for spreading Krishna consciousness, especially here in India. He is keen to do something wonderful with the combination of Western money and Indian culture. There was only one letter to reply to today from Kirtanananda Swami, who reported his reason for not being able to attend the Mayapur festival. The West Virginia State Health Authorities had placed a quarantine order on New Vrindavan because some devotees had become sick with jaundice. Kirtananda Maharaj said that some inimical state authorities overreacted to the situation. Now he thinks their community will be obliged to accept some regulation by the state authorities. His mood has been to keep things as simple as possible, but as he admitted, quote, either due to their lack of vision or our lack of expertise, simplicity has been taken for dirtiness. So this happened with the Gurukula, Srila Prabhupada in Dallas. After a certain time, the educational authorities began to make so many restrictions for everything, what to say, toilets and kitchen and different facilities, but also for the education, what they had to teach the children, and all these other things. So eventually Prabhupada just gave up on it and told them to move the Gurukula to Vrindavan. So government authorities, if not dealt with nicely by some intelligent devotees, reply, Srila Prabhupada told him if it is necessary to make alterations, he may do so. Yet he clearly stated his opinion of the modern so-called sanitary arrangements in the West. Quote, if the water supply is sufficient, there is no question of insanitation. Disease comes when there are dirty conditions. Concerning the existing outhouses, if they are not approved, then you can have a septic tank or pass stool in the open field. I was doing that. I never liked to go to the nonsense toilet, so I was going into the field. And of course, for devotees, we supply fertilizer. Prabhupada was very, very happy to see Sri Radha Govinda. The original deities who had provided his spiritual inspiration as a small child. Although the area had changed considerably from his childhood days, and the little courtyard and shrine are quite run down, the deities are still well looked after and offered daily puja. In the early evening, Prabhupada went to the Mulak house on Harrison Road, now Jatindra Mohan Avenue, in the area where he lived as a child. He was greeted enthusiastically by Kashinath Mulak, along with other Mulak family members and friends. So, Prabhupada was very happy to see Sri Radha Govinda, the original deities who had provided his spiritual inspiration as a small child. Although the area had changed considerably from his childhood days, and the little courtyard and shrine are quite run down, the deities are obviously still well looked after and offered daily puja. The mullahs and the other friends were delighted to see him. Although Srila Prabhupada told us that most of his contemporary friends were now dead, only one or two of those present were actually people he had played with in his childhood. He told us the deities have been worshipped by the mullahs for over 200 years. At one time, they owned the whole area. Even now, the government building across the street is the property of Radha Govinda. In a short speech, Prabhupada recalled his childhood history. His family had lived just down the street, behind the building called Govinda Bhavan, and as a 3 or 4-year-old, he would come every day to see the deities. Quote, and that is the inspiration of my devotional life. Then I asked my father that, quote, give me Radha Govinda deity I shall worship. So my father was also Vaishnava. He gave me small Radha Govinda deity. I was worshiping in my house. Whatever I was eating, I was offering, and I was following the ceremonies of this Radha Govinda with my small deity. That deity is still existing. I have given to my sister. So then I introduced Rath Yatra. My Rath Yatra was being performed very gloriously. My father used to spend money. In those days, 10 rupees, 20 rupees was sufficient. I hired one kirtan party and all small friends, and there was another gay family here. So we performed this Rath Yatra ceremony according to our children's imagination. It was very gorgeous. Gopishwar Mullah was my father's friend. So he was criticizing my father that, quote, you are performing Rath Yatra ceremony and you are not inviting us. So my father said, that is Rath Yatra festival was very gorgeously performed. Then, imitating me, the others, my brother, he also introduced Rath Yatra. And all of them introduced Rath Yatra, and the destination was this Thakur Bari from there. So practically what I'm doing now, the same thing. Radha Krishna worship, an introduction of Rath Yatra. I'm not doing anything else. You know very well. We're now performing Rath Yatra ceremony practically in all big cities of the world. In San Francisco, in Philadelphia, London, Melbourne, Paris. So the same thing. The same Radha Krishna worship and the same Rath Yatra in a bigger scale. But the same thing was begun as play from this quarter, this Thakur Bari. So this Thakur Bari, Radha Govindaji, is my life. That is the beginning of my spiritual life, and after so many years, still, Radha Govindaji has dragged me. It is his kindness. Srila Prabhupada only suggested that his good fortune was due to his previous activities. He quoted Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 41, which states that the unsuccessful yogi takes birth in the family of the pious and prosperous. The Day family, he said, was practically the same as the wealthy Mullahs, and his own father was a pure Vaishnava. With these opportunities provided by birth, he said he was simply developing them on a wider scale by Krishna's arrangement. Looking lovingly at Sri Radha Govinda, he ended his little speech, quote, "So about this movement, it may be said, this Radha Govinda deity is the inspiration. So you are all fortunate that you have come here. So let us offer our obeisances." Srila Prabhupada humbly bowed down, touching his head to the floor, and then, amidst much affection from his old friends, he climbed back into the car to return to his own recently established Radha Govinda Mandir. Any questions, comments? Reflection? Read one more paragraph. Driving back in the car, we crept through the heavy evening traffic, with cars constantly honking and overcrowded, dilapidated buses blasting back sooty emissions into the atmosphere. Seeing the congested streets teeming with tens of thousands of people made me reflect upon how different it must have been in the first decade of the century, when Srila Prabhupada and his young friends roamed these precincts. At that time, the transport would have been by horse and buggy or horse-drawn trams, and the population was much smaller. It must have been vastly different Calcutta from the present. Sri Prabhupada. The British and the government, they encourage people to leave the farms, leave their fields, and go and work in the factories. Just like here in South Africa, the African people were living peacefully in the Transkei and in the Eastern Cape. And the British, in order to get people to work in the gold mines, they had established a tax on the land, and you had to pay money. But the African people didn't have money. They didn't need money. So then the government forced them to go to work to make money, so they had to pay the tax. So this was all British and their demoniac tendencies to, as they did all over the world, to spread their not so nice culture and destroy the good cultures of other countries.